Welcome to Video Creator, where we embark on a cinematic journey to explore the deepest mysteries hidden within the human soul. The rain falls heavily on the cold pavement as Alex sprints through the neon-lit streets, desperate to escape the terror behind. Panic grips his heart tightly, forcing him to push his exhausted body beyond its limits, fueled only by pure primal fear. A shapeless darkness follows him, gliding silently against the rough brick walls, always remaining just out of his direct line of sight. He stumbles blindly in the dark, crashing into metal debris, the loud noise echoing like a gunshot in the silent night. Scrambling to his feet, he gasps for air, the flickering streetlights above casting eerie, dancing shadows that seem to mock his struggle. He bursts onto the busy main avenue, surrounded by indifferent crowds and honking cars, yet he feels completely isolated and hunted. Catching his reflection in a store window, he notices something disturbing. The image stares back with a sinister intensity he cannot recognize. Seeking refuge underground, he descends rapidly into the subway, hoping the artificial lights will banish the dark presence trailing his steps. The platform stands eerily silent and empty, amplifying the sound of his ragged breathing as he frantically searches for a hiding spot. Suddenly, the overhead lights begin to flicker violently, signaling that the relentless force he fears has followed him down into the depths. A train roars into the station with a deafening screech, offering a momentary chance of escape from the encroaching darkness behind him. He leaps through the closing doors just in time, collapsing onto the floor, believing he has finally put distance between them. But even inside the moving metal box, he sees shadows dancing wildly outside the windows, mocking his futile attempt at escape. The train arrives at the desolate final stop, forcing Alex to step out into the quiet, unsettling darkness of the suburban outskirts. He leaves civilization behind, walking down a lonely dirt path, where thick, white fog begins to rise and swallow the landscape. From high above, he appears as nothing more than a speck, a tiny, vulnerable figure, lost in the vast, indifferent wilderness. The sharp snap of a dry twig breaks the silence, causing him to spin around, facing nothing but the swirling, impenetrable mist. Fear propels him forward again, dashing through the undergrowth as sharp branches tear at his clothes and scratch his weary skin. An ancient tree root catches his foot, sending him crashing hard into the damp earth, tasting the bitterness of mud and defeat. Lying in the dirt, painful memories begin to surface, flashing images of angry words and broken relationships he left behind. He recalls the moment he turned his back on a friend in need, the guilt manifesting as a heavy weight in his chest. Shaking off the haunting visions, he forces himself upright, stumbling forward as a gray, joyless dawn begins to break over the horizon. Kneeling by a stream to wash his wounds, he recoils in horror as his reflection twists into something dark and unrecognizable. He scrambles backward, away from the water, breath hitching, finally realizing that this relentless pursuit is far more than just physical. The terrain shifts to unforgiving jagged rocks, where the howling wind whispers accusations that only he can hear in the solitude. The shadow grows larger and more defined, casting a massive silhouette against the cliff face, dominating the landscape around him. His foot slips on loose gravel, leaving him dangling precariously over the abyss, his fingers turning white as he clings to life. Summoning every ounce of strength, he hauls himself onto the ledge, collapsing safely but utterly drained of all physical energy. He screams into the vast emptiness, a raw sound of frustration and despair that fades quickly into the uncaring mountain air. The sky above turns an ominous shade of black, gathering heavy storm clouds that mirror the turmoil raging inside his mind. Torrential rain begins to fall, soaking him to the bone as he seeks fragile shelter beneath a jagged, overhanging rock. A flash of lightning illuminates the figure standing before him, a dark void that remains dry and untouched by the storm. He shuts his eyes tight and covers his ears, rocking back and forth while whispering desperate pleas for the entity to vanish. The storm eventually passes, leaving him to wander aimlessly across a cracked, dry wasteland that stretches to the horizon. The scorching sun beats down mercilessly, draining his last reserves of moisture and will, leaving him stumbling like a broken man. A shimmering oasis appears in the distance, offering false hope, only to vanish into dust the moment he reaches for it. He collapses onto the burning sand, his body finally giving up, accepting that he can no longer outrun this persistent shadow. His fingers grip the hot sand one last time before relaxing, his gaze fixed upward at the endless, unblinking blue sky. The shadow approaches slowly, blocking out the sun and casting a cold, dark veil over his exhausted and defeated face. Instead of looking away, he forces his eyes open, his expression shifting from terror to a quiet, newfound sense of curiosity. The entity does not strike. Instead, it stands perfectly still, its form shifting and molding until it mirrors his own silhouette. He begins to recognize the familiar slouch of the shoulders and the tilt of the head. It is undeniably his own reflection. A sudden realization hits him like a wave. This was never a monster, but the parts of himself he tried to bury. Images of his past mistakes, his lies, and his selfishness flood his mind. No longer hidden but exposed in the light. He slowly rises to a sitting position, facing his demon head-on, while the world around them falls into a profound silence. With a trembling but determined hand, he reaches out into the void, ready to touch the darkness he has always feared. The shadow mimics the gesture, and as their fingers meet, a brilliant spark of light erupts from the point of connection. The light expands rapidly, washing away the barren wasteland and replacing it with a vibrant, colorful field of blooming wildflowers. The darkness fades from the figure, revealing his own face looking back at him, wearing an expression of sorrow and understanding. He stands and steps forward, embracing the figure tightly, accepting his flaws as the two separate entities begin to merge. Light and shadow swirl together in a beautiful dance, fusing to create a single, complete person who is grounded and whole. He stands alone in the field, taking a deep, cleansing breath, his face radiating a profound peace he has never known. The camera circles him, capturing the beauty of the renewed world, with clear blue skies and the gentle sound of birds. He begins to walk forward, his steps slow and deliberate, stripped of the panic and urgency that once ruled his life. Passing a still lake, he glances at his reflection once more. This time, the face in the water smiles back peacefully. He heads back toward the city, but the looming skyline now appears bright and welcoming, no longer a place of dread. Moving through the crowd, he offers a warm smile to a passing stranger, who returns the gesture with genuine kindness. He pauses at the alleyway where his nightmare began, now bathed in the soft, golden glow of the afternoon sun. Looking at his shadow cast against the wall, he simply waves, acknowledging it not as an enemy, but as a companion. Sitting on a park bench, he watches the sun dip below the horizon, a notebook resting quietly in his relaxed hands. He opens the page and writes a simple truth. I am done running from myself. I have finally found my home. Life continues around him with the laughter of children and the rustle of leaves, a symphony of normalcy he now cherishes. Closing his eyes, he lets the cool evening breeze wash over him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for this moment. Balance has been restored to his universe, weighing the heaviness of his past against the lightness of his newfound freedom. Night descends upon the city once more, but the lights now twinkle with warmth and promise rather than cold indifference. He walks toward his home, his rhythm perfectly in sync with the heartbeat of the city that surrounds and protects him. Turning the key in the lock, he opens the door to let the warm, inviting yellow light spill into the hallway. Standing before his hallway mirror, he adjusts his collar and smiles, seeing a man who is finally whole and unafraid. He sits at his desk and begins to type, ready to share the story of his journey through darkness into light. The cursor blinks on the screen as he types the title, transforming his pain into art that might help others heal. The camera pulls back, leaving him to his work, rising high above the sleeping city that is now at peace. High above, the night sky is filled with stars, and a shooting star streaks across the velvet darkness, symbolizing hope. As the scene fades gently into darkness, we are left with a lingering sense of tranquility and the power of acceptance. Thank you for watching this story on Video Creator. Remember to embrace your shadows to find your true light. Subscribe now.